Welcome to Hilarity by Default's weekly BRISCO County Jr. review, starring the well-known chin of Bruce Campbell. While in pursuit of one of his father's killers, BRISCO discovers that his prey is not only himself seeking the orb with a stolen government supercannon, but also happens to be the ex-husband of his love interest, Dixie Cousins. Meanwhile, Socrates has to contend with the return of his madly passionate ex-lover Rita, who has just escaped prison in episode 15, aka Kansas. aka Kansas is a flawed but welcome return to form for BRISCO County Jr. following the duds of Steel Horses and Mail-Order Brides. Sure, it has BRISCO again going after yet another one of his father's many killers, dealing with the orb.
The orb?
Of course, what else?
And his romantic entanglement with Dixie Cousins. But the episode is highly entertaining, featuring some intriguing set pieces, good humor, and character moments. In some ways, it plays as a follow-up to the last defining Dixie Orb episode, Deep in the Heart of Dixie. Though it fails to reach the action heights of that episode, Kansas is a solid affair nevertheless.
Everything just felt like it was back to form, right? Overall, I had a lot of fun with the episode. Everybody was acting like they were supposed to. It even throws back, once again, like Socrates has his own side thing that isn't necessarily tied to the main plot per se, kind of like his whole situation in Mail Order Brides. Granted, everybody here is speaking in proper English without any curious accents and how they pronounce their F's or anything like that. But, the return of Rita, again, albeit nothing to do with the plot, still kind of even the small details, even the B portions of this episode were back to form.
I will say that at least in Mail Order Bride, Socrates' involvement with El Magnifico did pay off in the end. Yeah, his involvement is a bit of a stretch to bring all those characters together at the end, but at least he was still involved in the main plot. Him and Rita here, it's a complete deviation.
Well, hey, listen, I can also argue it's completely pointless to come to find out that Lord Bowler lives in relative majesty and luxury, thanks to all the work that BRISCO's brought him by way of his being a trusty companion. But listen, Reginald's a bad man majama, and he had nothing to do with the plot, and I still enjoy his involvement.
Mr. County, sir? Oh, good heavens. His lordship's faithful companion. Do please come in, sir.
Despite Bowler's gruff exterior, we have come to know him as kind of the opposite of what he promotes so far. He's a romantic, angel-singing crystal collector, and I freaking love it.
Well, some of it felt a bit forced too, like, what am I going to do with all this money kind of thing. So he's like, crystal, okay. And then he kind of got into it, and he's saying, you better be careful with my crystal, Socrates, or whatever it is he says, or, and I mean, I know the orb gets involved in the episode, but it's how it should be. Hey, remember me? I'm the orb. I'm going to pull you along for the big arc, and I'm going bye.
The introduction to Dixie's ex-husband, Doc McCoy. Gosh, how many of Bly's gang did she hook up with? But regardless, is effective in setting up a Hitchcock Notorious angle where BRISCO has to ask her to covertly reignite that romance, to BRISCO's own growing consternation. It's not a unique plot, but I feel it's handled well given the circumstances and is adequately subdued given how much is going on. What did you think of everything involving Doc McCoy and that romantic entanglement?
I the only thing I was missing was a situation where he was all like, but Dixie, I love you. And then Dixie goes, damn it, Doc, you're a gangster, not a doctor. Anyways, he's Doc McCoy.
That has to be a reference.
Someone had to make that joke, and it was me, damn it. Anyways, he was not a villain that had the flash of some of his predecessors, right? I mean, listen, the tough thing about being a villain in the Bly gang is you have to be awesome enough to carry an episode where BRISCO chases you without overshadowing Bly. Hey, give Bly credit. It's going to be damn difficult to overshadow him. In fact, to come close to doing so, you basically literally have to come back from the dead. Am I right, Big Smith? But
Or be David Warner.
Or be David Warner. That's a great point by you, Demos. Doc is a far more subdued being, but you know what? I think he's supposed to be, right? They really kind of paint around how he actually got into being a criminal, but I don't think he was necessarily always meant to be that way. It was more like kind of like the pirate in the one episode, where we know he should have been on the seas, but somehow or another he ended up with Bly.
This guy's like the gentleman version of that in a way.
Well, but see, he's still not even the best gentleman version that's out there. That's why I kind of leaned away from that. We saw the best gentleman Bly ally. Ooh, I like that term. In the Riverboat episode. So
that's true. The one thing, there's only, and this, I'm jumping ahead to my bad list, there's only one scene with them, McCoy and Dixie, that just did not work for me. I call it the Gone with the Wind scene. A beautifully shot sequence where they're talking about their love together, but it's chock full of, the best way I can say it is, romantic trites. I felt like Bowler from later on in the episode where he smashes a guy's face in due to being bored.
Bowler, what'd you have to go and do that for? I was gonna talk our way out of this.
I was getting bored.
The scene itself is fine. It's a dialogue exchange. It just feels very, very cliche for me.
Well, and that's, you know what though, think about this, Demos. Think about the challenge of trying to build the McCoy romance, if you will, right?
The real McCoy.
Holy. The real McCoy romance, right? Because they got married, right? So think about trying to create a situation where there's some there, but it can't overshadow County and Cousins. See what I'm saying?
It was definitely a challenge. I think that they tried to make up for it by making it a beautifully shot scene.
Yeah, and the reason and the way they assured they wouldn't go over the top was crowbarring cliches. Crikey. That's a lot of alliteration by me.
I felt like those crowbar cliches made it over the top for me personally, but it's not a deal breaker scene. It's just I felt it was a very weak scene. I think it could have been handled a little bit better. But this episode, at the same time, I feel like it has a very, very brisk pace, and it really makes some of the filler elements stand out a little bit more, specifically the Rita Socrates stuff for me.
So you're trying to say that this brisk-o pace did not lando for you?
Yes, Kyle, that's exactly.
We finally have an episode where Cousins and County hang out, but they don't necessarily bone. Oh my gosh, how mature. You know, they brought some down-to-earth element rather than just being immortal buddies the whole episode. Like, they're actually talking about some substance, and they broached the topic of I love you. I know that's supposed to be sappy, and as a 6'5", gruff, formidable 300-pound man, I'm not supposed to be interested in that sort of thing, but substance is good in a lot of things, and this interaction was one of them.
I will say the one thing I really did enjoy in this episode was that shooting exhibition with the ricochets, which foreshadow the ending face-off with Doc, which I appreciate. It's a little tougher to swallow, that type of precision, but it's Briscoe. If anybody on the planet can do it, it's Bruce Campbell, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
the banter, the back and forth between him and Bowler during that exhibition, the banter between such faithful companions, and how Briscoe was milking it, I loved it. Everything about that scene, I freaking loved. I enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah, it's another one. Okay, what's the theme for this show, Demos? It shouldn't work, and yet somehow it does. And the worst episodes are the ones where the somehow it doesn't quite come around. And like you said, it's another one of those things where it's shown in the beginning, it's referenced, and then it's used. It in no way ends up burning them down like a flamethrower at all.
Oh, God. Well, this would be like talking about ricochets and how important it is to winning a battle and then never ever using a ricochet. That's the flamethrower. I have to ask you, because this scene I thought had a fantastic setup, but I'm kind of curious to see how you felt about the execution. Briscoe chained to a horseless runaway carriage heading towards a cliff. I mean, that's cliffhanger serial at its best. His being able to pick the locks in time, I mean, there's no way that wouldn't be a bumpy ride. I find it's a bit hard to swallow, but it works due to them not taking a cheaper route out. Once again, they rarely ever use a Deus Ex Machina in these situations. He doesn't happen to have a lockpick on him. He doesn't have a utility belt that has shark repellent. Why the hell does he have shark repellent? So I bought it.
We talk about all the time how there are references to Indiana Jones. It certainly reminded me of the tank in Last Crusade, and I think this was better executed. The one scene a few scenes I have issues with in the Last Crusade is the whole tank thing is kind of dumb with it going over the cliff, but they play with it at the end to make it work. And this one, the lockpick thing didn't bother me so much. It seemed a little bit trite, but again, you get with as inventive and creative as they get with things, sometimes the outcome just has to be a bit more grounded.
At least he MacGyvered his way out of it.
Right. And you know, so again, we want to maintain, to use your standard, the tongue is firmly planted in cheek, but let's not slip and have it stuck out at the viewer.
Although I felt that the orb was well used in this episode, I'm not a fan of the future Briscoe scene where he's talking to his future self through the orb. I do like the fact that they set up the orb scholar again, and that the fact that this storyline closes the door on now the second of the 3 orbs out there. 1 to go. That's the one with the orb scholar. So it's interesting that there's continuity and chapter closes. I never was a fan of, I'm talking to my future self.
Right. Well, and another thing added here, an advantage or disadvantage, whatever you want to call it, is you've seen this series to fruition. I have not. Therefore, that orb series is listen, if you're going to do some smug BS between two characters or rather a character talking to them future selves, the smugness is delivered with Bruce Campbell. Okay.
I can't argue against 2 Bruce Campbells, and God knows he's had enough antagonism between him and his twin self in other films.
Right in the face! 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 What more do I need to say? And if you need something more else to still be said, I'm sure Demos will have a link in the description. The punchline is this. For once, Bruce Campbell gets to, have fun with him, phrasing, gets to interact with himself in such a fashion to where it's not, something out of a psych ward, right? And
it was a pleasure seeing him play with himself. I will agree.
Phrasing. No, but the smugness and all of that was just I enjoyed it, and maybe they won't deliver on it like it's setting up, but I liked it, man. I think there's just a few things here that bothered you more than me. Wouldn't be the first time.
Like I said, there's very little about this episode that I flat out hated. Just a few little things story beats that personally just don't quite hit for me, but I don't think I've mentioned anything that's really gonna knock too many comments off of this.
Right. I think you may want to queue up the cheese pizza anomaly, right? I think this is definitely a cheese pizza episode. I don't think there's anything that's bad, but nothing really exciting here. Doc McCoy was not a particularly memorable character per se. At least he didn't burn a guy with a flamethrower. But what I'm saying is this.
Yeah, it's definitely not that egregious. Damn. Well, you know what? If this started off with this guy entering the building and saying, "I stole this from Mama Swill," and just burning a building down with his flamethrower, I would have forgiven Mail Order Brides. I would have bumped it up a star.
Doc McCoy, this man is terribly burned. I'm a gangster, not a doctor. Anyways, the biggest knock I would have on this episode is obviously not enough comment. Certainly not enough comment at all.
We got an extra dosing of Bowler to make up for it, in my opinion.
Oh, that's an excellent point by you. But
and we got Reginald.
We did get Reginald.
Who in some ways could be argued that Reginald is Bowler's comet.
Let me put it to you this way, brother. I'm looking somewhere in this 27 episode season, half of which at least are gone, where we need a scene where Reginald is combing Comet's coat. Boom.
It's a very interesting demand, but I can't say from memory if I ever remember that happening, so now I'm very curious.
But if by episode 27 it doesn't happen, consider me disappointed.
Yeah, I might as well just throw this series out the window at that point. I mean...
Not what I said, but we'll think about it.
We need to. It was, Briscoe would have been a great series, but it was really lacking that horse grooming scene from The Butler.
I mean, listen, disappointed in the sense that my, perfectly made ribeye steak, bone-in ribeye steak didn't have mushrooms on it. That's all.
What did you think of AKA, well, not in this case, the guy that is actually known as being Kansas? What did you think of him?
I'm not surprised that we got what we got out of him. This is the real Kansas? Well, shoot, Briscoe's way better than this loser.
I kind of hate how quickly it took him down because they built him up as this legendary figure, but I kind of forgive it because I really loved Bowler's actual reaction to it. It gave me such a big laugh.
Yeah, that was a good scene. And moreover, I need to remind you, someone not played by Bruce Campbell, ergo, disappointment was inevitable.
Yeah. So I really don't have much more to say about him. I think we gotta just jump to the chase here. And like I said, despite the lack of comment, I'm very curious to see how many comments you give AKA Kansas.
Well, as anything that would be appropriate to something I'm using the cheese pizza parable on, it's going to have to be 3 comments.
Fits you to a T.
Once again, we are right on the same wavelength. Up to this point, we've been within 1 comment of each other. In this case, I 100% agree. 3 comments. This is the Cheese Pizza Briscoe. It may not be as well composed as some of the stronger Briscoe County episodes, and personally, I think it often languishes inorganically with filler in an otherwise brisk moving plot. However, when it shines, it shines pretty bright, giving our heroes some genuinely enjoyable moments, character beats, and I dare say even pathos. 3 comments, solid return to form.
So, in short, you thought you definitely enjoyed the Briscoe pace, and it did Lando, but it was not the best of the Brando. Got it.
So join us every week as we cover all 27 episodes of The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. We invite you to watch along and let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on each episode. And make sure to like and subscribe for more fun from Hilarity by Default.